i.e., the mechanism that says we will always do things that are move towards what's good for us and away from the things we perceive as being not good for us.
All right, well, that is not worded correctly. The motivational mechanism doesn't make you move toward things that are good for you. It makes you move toward things you believe are good for you. Big difference. Big difference. Belief is the key. So you may not move toward things that are good for you because you have a belief that the alternative is worse. So pay attention to the idea of how the motivational mechanism actually works. It doesn't make you move toward things that are good for you. It makes you move toward things you believe are good for you, which may not be the case. So you have to have real honesty within yourself about why you are choosing what you're choosing and whether you're really choosing it out of anxiety or excitement and covering up the anxiety with what seems to be excitement so you don't have to look at the anxiety, so that you don't have to face the idea that you may be holding on to a belief that choosing what is actually good for you would actually make something happen that is worse than what you're choosing now, even though it may not necessarily be in your best interest. So be clear in your understanding of how the motivational mechanism actually functions.
And so this person is mentioning that they think they understand the formula, but one part of it is still unclear. And that is, how does the formula tie in with good habits, discipline, and on a larger scale, routines, structures, jobs? Does following one's excitement mean disregarding all structures and routines? Is the formula inherently spontaneous and impulsive?
No. As I say, the formula contains the organizing principle of synchronicity. The organizing principle, that phrase alone implies structure. But it's the structure that works for you. It's the structure that allows you to flow. It's a structure, paradoxically, that allows for spontaneity. But it is still a pattern. It's still a structure. But it feels less like a structure because you're flowing within a structure that's natural for you. So you don't feel the resistances that often come with the artificial structures you impose on yourselves that are not natural for who you are. That's why it doesn't feel like a structure, because it's the structure that fits you.
Okay, thank you. And how do I find the purpose of my life? How do I find my excitement?
As I said, you can start small. The fact that you're asking that question is a representation that you have found your excitement for that moment, because obviously it was more exciting than any other choice to ask that question. So you can do the same thing in the next moment. What's the next thing that has a little bit more excitement, curiosity, attractiveness than any other choice? Start simply. Keep it simple. Again, when we talk about finding your passion and your excitement, we don't mean that you have to be jumping up and down and running around like crazy. It doesn't mean it has to come with trumpets and angels singing. It means, what's the next thing I have the ability to act on that has more attractiveness than any other choice? That's simple. Taking a walk, reading a book, eating a meal, talking to a friend, creating something, whatever it is, asking a question of someone like you just did, whatever it is that has more attractiveness, that feels like the next thing you really, really feel like doing, do it. And keep doing that. It will build, it will snowball into other expressions of your excitement, as long as you keep checking yourself to make sure that you're actually acting on excitement and not acting on anxiety disguised as excitement.
And this idea of the end justifying the means, and that would be that it seems like the higher mind has an attitude of the ends justify the means. So for people with especially hard themes, that includes a total forgetting of any spiritual truths. What are your thoughts on this?
It's not that the higher mind has an end justifies the means position. That's a human interpretation. The idea is the soul understands what it's going to get out of the experience and is doing its job of guiding the physical mind within it in such a way as to send it the guidance it needs in order for the physical mind to have an experience that allows it to face challenges that are beneficial to it, to allow it to expand, to allow it to grow, to allow it to have a fulfilling and joyful life experience. The only reason it appears as if the end justifies the means is because of the perspective of the physical mind that is harboring and holding on to belief systems that are out of alignment with its core frequency. So, the idea that it seems too hard to bear, as we discussed already, comes from the linear perspective, not from the soul perspective. The soul is doing its best to send you messages of passion, but the physical mind has the ability and the free will to ignore it. And it is in ignoring that guidance from the soul that the physical mind then says, oh, this looks like the end justifies the means because I am being subjected to these horrible, torturous experiences, instead of allowing yourself to understand what we have shared with you about the formula that allows you to remain in a positive state no matter what happens, so you can always get a benefit from it. That's why that step is in there, so that you can understand how this works, so that you can experience a life of challenge in a positive way that allows you to expand and experience the benefits of facing those challenges, rather than feeling overwhelmed or feeling that the soul is somehow torturing you by putting you in a situation that's too much for you. It's not. You're putting yourself in the situation that makes it appear to be too much for you by not following the formula, by not opening up to the idea that challenges can be positive, by not feeling worthy, by forgetting who you are. That's what the soul may have chosen to start with, but it has always given you the opportunity to pay attention to what you can actually use to go through the experience from beginning to end that actually will help you learn and grow and experience a life of fulfillment and joy.
And when you see things on a screen, let's say that synchronistically are an important message, like from the lyrics of a song or anything related to sudden communication coming in written form like that on a screen, do the souls that are generating that information know that they are delivering that information to you? And are their souls literally trying to communicate and encourage me?
Yes. It could be your own soul, could be your own higher mind, but it can also be your spirit guides, members of your soul family, members of the angelic realm, other ETs, other dimensionals that are using synchronicity to deliver information that will help you. So yes, it's a deliberate act of connection and communication from whatever the source is to help you out. The fact that you experience the synchronicity means it is for you. Now, synchronicities can be holographically multidimensional, and synchronicities can serve many different people simultaneously. If more than one person is experiencing the synchronicity, there may be messages in there for all the people experiencing it. And that, again, is a deliberate act that may be coming from many different sources in a multidimensional way. But the bottom line is, yes, it's a message for you.
And so when you are, or an individual is hearing information from another person, and they're seeing that the person is giving them a nonsensical belief, but they're buying into it, but the individual listening is buying into it, is a result of not knowing themselves that they
Yes.
would do that?
Yes. That's why it's so important to know yourself, to know what is truly working for you and what is not, to take what advice allows you to grow and be self-empowered, and leave behind those things that don't. It's learning that discernment. That's one of the lessons of physical reality, learning what is and isn't truly you. And that's why you can always use what isn't you to help you understand more clearly what is you.
And why are we experiencing this physical form? Can we experience similar limitations in another form? Why this one now?
There are some other forms in which you can experience the idea of limitations, but as we have said, the Earth cycles is one of the more concentrated places to experience this idea of limitation. And therefore it means, as we have said, it's a master graduating class. You have decided to take a class that allows you to really stretch and exercise the powers you know you have accumulated in the growth of the soul up to this point. So in other words, you don't choose to stay in kindergarten or first grade forever. You say, all right, let's move on to the second grade and the third grade and the fourth grade. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to challenge myself. Otherwise, it would be, quote unquote, boring to do the same thing over and over again. Let's see, where can I find something that's a real interesting challenge? Oh, look at what's going on Earth. Let's do that. We're ready for that. We're ready to really accelerate our growth. We're really ready to learn some interesting things because that's the school that offers it. That's why people choose to go to college. That's why people choose to have master's degrees, PhDs. They want to continue to learn and grow and stretch and expand. Earth is one of those places where you can really do some expanding if you get the point, if you learn what the class is all about, if you're willing to learn the lesson.
When the Earth School began, for humans, I suppose,
Yes.
how did that whole thing get created? Was that like a convergence of a multitude of consciousnesses
Yes.
coming together and thinking this up, or as a
Yes.
continuation of a whole
Yes.
galactic story? Is that
Yes. 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 Groups of individuals, groups of souls, councils of souls, soul families, everyone participates in the creation of an experience like a planet called Earth and similar planets and all planets. It is created on a very high level by consensus through different groups of souls as to what would be interesting and exciting for the souls to experience to continue the idea of their expansion and their growth. Yes, it's a part of the evolution of existence itself. Souls come together on different levels, in different frequencies, and they agree to create these things. Just like someone might decide to come together to create a theme park. Well, I need these people to come together. I need those people that know how to do that to come in. We need these souls to come in who know how to do that and suggest this and suggest that. And before you know it, there it is. And now we can all share in it.
and it seems like the prime directive that souls experience, in a sense, is the idea of expansion, growth.
Yes.
This seems to be the most fundamental desire, I guess, of the
It is the impetus of existence. You have to understand what infinite actually means. Infinity has a momentum. So the idea is that existence itself provides the momentum by its very existence to continue to fill infinity. It's attempting to be all that it is. That attempt to be all that it is. It is all that is, but it also contains the attempt to be all that it is. That's the active principle. So there's the structure, and then there's the active principle. That's why you see in our family sigil the triskelion, the triangle with the spiral in it. There is the structure represented by the triangle, but there is the active principle. That's what you call the act of creation, the act of being. So that creates that sensation, that momentum, that urge, that drive, that desire to fill it all up, to fill infinity, to know yourself on every possible level. And it's infinite. So it's that drive to know yourself, to be yourself, and the act of becoming and being yourself that continues that expansion. It's
And
the
you've
nature.
described in the
It's the
past
active nature. It's the active nature of existence. There's the structural nature of existence and the active nature of existence, what you call creation.
so like you've described in the past, I guess the idea of terraforming planets and moving planets, that level of consciousness that's capable of things that
Yes.
are beyond in our minds, beyond our wildest dreams of what is possible.
Well, there are levels
Um,
to that idea. There can be terraforming projects, as you call it, that can take a planet body, a form that already exists, and convert it through technology to something that might be more compatible to certain forms of life. That's one level of it. What we were talking about is the actual creation of an experience going from the spirit level into the physical level on a huge consensus level reality of co-creation by many different souls to actually bring the very idea of the planet into physical existence in much the same way that you bring the physical mind into existence at the center of the soul. So there is a consensus level on a greater level, again, greater than even what you typically refer to as the oversoul. That's an oversoul of oversouls of oversouls that actually comes together to create within the center of its being a physical experience that contains the experience of many souls on what you call a planet. It's a larger version, a much larger version of creating a single physical identity. It's a consensus identity within a much larger oversoul. That's what a planet is. A consensus identity of many souls within an amazingly large oversoul consciousness at the center of its being.
it's amazing.
Yes.
So we have some questions that relate to the Interstellar Alliance ID card.
Yes.
One of them was, what do the 5 stars on the Interstellar Alliance ID card represent?
The 5 hybrid races that already exist.
And you provided that as step 4. Is it okay to translate the words on the card into a foreign language so they can use the card more easily in areas where English is not native?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And since the Greys initiated the hybrid agenda together with the Mantids, resulting in the Sasani, Yael, and other races with open contact in its final stages, it would seem that the role of the Greys themselves would be over. Yet many contactees still feel an active connection and interest in them in their particular Grey counterparts, even today. And what are these Grey counterparts seeking to experience in the unfolding of open contact, which they themselves initiated so long ago through their
We
own
must remind you,
connection?
we must remind you to stop talking about the Greys as if there's only one single faction. There are many factions of Greys. The different factions have different agendas, come from different places, different times, different parallel realities, are at different stages of the entire process, even though they may be interacting with your planet or different versions of it. So you are experiencing, based on your vibration, different stages of the idea of interactions with Greys, different points in their evolution, and therefore it depends upon what's going on in your vibration that will determine what faction of Greys you may still or not be still interacting with. That's all we can say right now about that. But don't treat the Greys as if there's only one faction that you're dealing with.
Okay, and this person says they were told that reptilian beings are dangerous in the Sedona area at this time. Is
No,
that
no,
accurate?
no. It is not correct.
Okay. Are there a lot of misunderstandings about, I guess, reptilians, and
Yes, as I've said
are they
before, as I've said before, they are a certain kind of species that invokes in the limbic system of your physical brain the idea of a fight or flight response because of the nature of their vibration, because you look at them as predatory, because that's the way you relate to the idea of reptilian DNA. And therefore, humans, mammalians, have a fight or flight survival fear based response to exposure to the reptilian vibration. It doesn't mean they actually intend to do you harm. It's just the nature of their frequency as it relates to the nature of the mammalian frequency that represent human beings.